Okay, guys, I wanted to show you a little presentation which I actually created just today. I downloaded this program again to record the screen and have some trouble actually putting it in presenter view. So excuse me for that. I'll put it like this. With hindsight of the recent developments in the Iran war and the rapidly shifting kind of things that are happening there, I didn't want to stop that from publishing this presentation. So I will talk about how to position Germany in the Red Sea region. This in light of the currently 2006 Iran war, Iran, Israel, and USA war. So I'll start with giving a little background as to the Red Sea to show you how important this region is and how it is connected to what's currently going on in Iran mainly, and of course also other countries that are involved in that war and that have tight relations with the Red Sea or even Red Sea countries. So the background is the Red Sea is a global choke point for trade, energy, and data, which means very quickly you can read it yourself. I don't have to read it for you. The war right now accelerates, of course, the reshaping of the regional security dynamic as well also as the global dynamic. The point is here that further escalation of the war that is currently playing out in Iran may lead to a decrease in maritime traffic through the Red Sea and damage to internet cables. And that is if escalation further persists and after the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, also the Red Sea gets affected. So why the Red Sea matters a bit more in detail. 12 to 15% of global trades run through the Red Sea. The Suez Canal, which is connecting Europe to Africa basically, is a core artery for Europe and ships are passing through there. Then of course the cables, there's subsea cables which serve as a link to Europe and Asia, digital infrastructure link, critical digital infrastructure. So very general overview, rising attacks mean higher cost, delays and inflation, and several other factors which I will talk about in the presentation. So what is Germany's positioning and exposure in the current conflict, or not in the current conflict, but as a long constant actually, but how is it affected and what kind of antinomies, drive Germany? So Germany is a very export-driven economy. It is a strong economy. It is Europe's strongest economy, as it's often said, but it is a very weak military. Of course, due to historic reasons also, and also due to these historic reasons, there's something called the German Staatsräson, which defines a lot how Germany acts in foreign policy. That's basically a commitment to the security of Israel, which is embedded in the German constitution, and Staatsräson is the reason of state, kind of you can translate it like this literally. Then, of course, Germany has also a lot of Arab and African partnerships, and traditionally, I would say, a multilateral preference, of course, also because of its weak military and strong economy, but also after World War II, of course, it was embedded into a European architecture and also the NATO. So it is very closely related to the United States. It has, as a reason of state, also a close alignment with the security interests of Israel. But of course, especially also as an export nation and a kind of trade nation, Germany has very tight connections also with many Arab countries and also African countries, though to a lesser extent. There's a brief overview of Germany to kind of get into the dialogue and you know where I'm coming from or where Germany is coming from. So next, I will talk about maritime disruptions in general, what they mean, in terms of the Red Sea. I mean, we have some experience with the disruptions in the Red Sea already in 2021, if you remember. There was a tanker or a ship that had an accident or blocked the strait, which is very narrow. So one ship actually blocked the straits, and for 6 days until it could be kind of deblocked and decongestated. And this had enormous impact on global supply chains and maritime traffic. It had an estimated cost of 6.7 million per second for the global economy, of course, and a total of 9.6 billion over the whole 6 days. Then we had also another experience of the disruptions during the Houthi attacks in 2023 that lasted actually quite long, and were also connected to like regional and geopolitical tensions. And that was dealt with the rerouting via the Cape of Good Hope, which translated into like a transit time that increased of 10 to 14 days for ships that wanted to reach Europe or vice versa. Between especially Asia, of course, and Europe. So it had a huge impact on German exports and, of course, energy imports and also supply chains in general. Like, I mean, Germany is a manufacturing economy, needed a lot of stuff too. And like really industry kind of for some days and longer, there was a big crisis and some factories grinded to a standstill even, which was even before in the COVID, which I should have put here actually also, which was disrupted a lot of supply chains. It was a big issue for Germany. And right now, with the current situation in 2026, where we already have the Strait of Hormuz blocked at the moment while I'm talking, and which already has a huge impact, it could serve as a really big multiplier and leverage also if the Red Sea gets blocked during the current conflict. Of course, adding to the maritime security risk, there's the digital infrastructure risk, because the Red Sea is also like, through the Red Sea runs a dense cluster of subsea cables. And this damage disrupts then financial transactions, of course. I mean, everything that is connected to the internet, basically, that runs through these cables. There's 4 big and very important cables for connecting Asia and Europe, mainly. But also, of course, the littoral countries are affected, and the African countries also by these disruptions that are dependent on these cables. But yeah, financial transactions, commodity markets are affected if these things happen. Military operations are affected, like there was a breach in cable where drones couldn't be operated anymore that were used in Somalia in 2008. That's like one of the lessons the EU took basically to kind of secure this strait more. There's like a EU-wide mission also that was recently, or I think yesterday or before yesterday, discussed to extend to the Strait of Hormuz. But I think Germany took the position not to do it for now. Anyhow, like it has big effects. Cloud connectivity, data flows in general can be severely impacted. And the lesson of the kind of disruptions that happened in 2023, 2024 was also that the EU it was exposed that there were really delays in repairing those cables. So it's a vulnerability, and there's a big focus on securitizing the Red Sea because of that too, and an interest from Germany. So in general, like due to the current conflict, the region is highly volatile, as I think most of you can imagine. The Gulf states are currently like quiet on the front because they get attacked by like Iranian retaliation at the moment, but didn't openly like push for military solutions, and kind of, so far as I could observe, maintain their position that they had already in the last conflict, and at least openly. But we will see how these things work out. But it is a big risk, of course, that would also exacerbate, like the impact would exacerbate if like the Iranians would decide to involve, for example, their proxies, the Houthis in Yemen. Then these attacks could start again, and it would further disrupt everything. So Germany is kind of observing that, of course, too, and the reactions. The Horn of Africa would be completely in fragmentation, or further, not completely. I mean, the situation always, fragmentation happens, but also realignments happen, and it could lead also to several cases of stabilization. But definitely big change. There's a lot of military bases in the Horn of Africa from several countries, in Djibouti, in Eritrea, nearly all littoral countries. Adding to that, there's a memorandum of understanding between Somaliland and Ethiopia that was in discussion, like already before the recent war. And Ethiopia also agreed or said it would probably, or it could, accept the sovereignty, or Somaliland is a sovereign state which was break away from Somalia. Israel already did that then, later, without this announcement. So there's like real movement in the Horn of Africa Also, other rivalries play out, like regional powers like Saudi Arabia and, of course, the Emirates also have like their own interests in the region. And of course, Israel, which is kind of openly has become an open actor with the recognition of Somaliland before this war, and that could increase and leads to Germany also maybe taking more open postures, but more to that later. Yeah, the regional power ambitions, I mentioned some of them. I will not go too deep into that, but also Egypt, of course, is one of the regional powers traditionally like in clinch with Ethiopia, One Nile water, etc., but also regional kind of influence and dominance. And Ethiopia also is very ambitiously pushing since some years already, and it's kind of constant since the independence of Eritrea that they want to see access. And that's also why the Memorandum of Understanding was kind of thought of to gain it via Somaliland. But yeah, actors have very complicated and diverse interests, and these could, like, really, how do you say, kind of not explode, but come to the forefront. And new shifts and new alignments are currently happening. And this region, the Red Sea, will almost surely be dragged, and it is already. But in case that Iran decides to escalate and that the shipping would be affected, the positions change completely. And addition to that, and especially also difficult for Germany, is a global crisis of multilateralism. I term it like that. You see the US president often, or also in this Iran war, the US and the Israeli attack on Iran is like not covered by international law, which brings dilemma to Germany, who was very to the forefront when, for example, the Russian attack on Ukraine happened. And it brings the German position in a bit of a dilemma that always prefers multilateralism and acting via the EU also, and based, if possible, openly on law, international law. So what is Germany actually? Germany's role in the current system and embedded in its alliances. Germany's usually positioned to act as a stabilizing and predictable actor. So it has not much changed. Germany is slow and conservative, but predictable, which is a good advantage, and also permits it to be a bridge between many actors. It is, it uses the European Union for maritime security, like the mission Espiden that was done on the Red Sea that I mentioned, that was discussed even to, or I would say requested by Donald Trump to extend to the Strait of Hormuz, but they refused it for now. Yeah, it used to be, or it still is, a diplomatic bridge between the US, EU, Israel, Gulf, and African states to of course, a lesser extent due to the strategic interests of Germany and also historical embeddings and alliances. And also it was a bridge to Russia before, due to the Ukraine war and its aftermath, the strategic alignment of Germany got closer to the US. Not closer, I mean, it stayed the same, I would say, even though fracture lines appeared in Germany and in German civil society and between political parties too. But the general position of Germany didn't change openly. But it's a support of long-term regional resilience and stability, of course, due to its trade focus and dependency on exports, as well as imports. We cannot only say exports since we have global supply chains. And Germany needs, of course, like any economy, for example, Chinese materials to manufacture its goods. So let's just skip, because it's just a brief and general overview to Germany's likely strategic path in this current conflict. So it will push for European Union anchored maritime security. It will not openly act unilaterally, even though currently the international relations all over are even the EU is kind of a little bit in disarray due to some US interest or perceived strategic interest of the US in Greenland, etc., where alarm bells rang here and also in Germany. There's quiet coordination with Israel and other long-term Western allies like the Gulf states, Egypt, Ethiopia, etc. It is working with the Gulf hedging. The Gulf hedging is currently changing. It was, but not openly yet. We will see how the Gulf states react. I think many people are actually waiting for that because they bear a big cost to this conflict and they are directly attacked also. Or the US infrastructure that you can say, but still it's missiles raining on their countries. So everyone seems to wonder, kind of, I have the feeling, how they will reply, or if they will reply in a different way that they are already doing. Then Germany may deepen its Horn of Africa engagement with strategic partners and support Egypt's stability, which is a long-term partner of Germany. At the same time, Germany has a big footprint, for example, in Ethiopia too, but mainly through development cooperation. And also, we shouldn't forget the lens of migration, containment, and climate change that Germany is very active in, but I don't focus on that now here. And strengthen digital and trade relations via the EU. This is like still an ongoing process, which is though a priority for Germany, and it will work for that, I believe, still in a multilateral way, which shows, for example, the reaction yesterday or before yesterday openly from the Chancellor Friedrich Merz that they will not want to participate in like extending the speed and mandate for the Strait of Hormuz. So in general, Germany is still EU anchored, diplomatically active, but strategically cautious. Its main interest is in protecting data trade stability in this region of the Red Sea and further. Of course, there's an elephant in the room: China, Russia, and further emerging powers, as well as like Germany, Iran, and other relations that are not the same as if you come, for example, from a US perspective. Germany still has more open ties and mediation than other countries, which is like this bridge function that it takes, and is like this stable, predictable kind of bridge and mediation country. So thank you very much for following the content as usual. Please follow me for more analysis. You can comment me always, inbox for requests or in-depth analysis, because I glanced a bit over it. I just wanted to do it kind of fast, and also organize a little bit the thoughts. I have written a paper in more detail too, but this is for YouTube. Suggestions also are highly welcome, and also additions. You can always comment, and I will try to pick up on it. So best regards and have a good day. Bye bye.